Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Adam Eisen Show. I'm back to bring you all episode 23 today after another packed week of sports news. The carousel is still spinning in the NFL, and we aren't talking about any regular merry-go-round. We are talking about the QB carousel, and that's exactly where I'm starting my show off today. Matt Ryan, as you all know, has officially been traded to the Indianapolis Colts earlier this week. And I was going around social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and I noticed a common occurrence. And it's that many people think that Matt Ryan doesn't still have plenty left in the tank. And I'm going to lay out for you in this segment why I think this was a great move for all three parties involved in this trade. Now, Matt Ryan, to start, he's a guy that since he came into this league, he has 42 game-winning drives. That's tied with Matthew Stafford for the most. He also has 13 straight seasons with 20-plus touchdown passes. That's tied with Brady for the longest streak. The two guys who just left their teams that they were with since they got drafted, that the city loved them, they loved. The two guys who just left to go to better organizations and more talented teams and won Super Bowls, Matt Ryan is very, very similar to. And I know that I've said multiple times on this show, the grass is not always greener on the other side. But don't doubt that Matt Ryan is a guy, especially with the Indianapolis Colts, where the grass could be greener. He's quarterback with 6 straight seasons with a passer rating over 90. With a bad offensive line, a head coaching carousel, and no stability. Matt Ryan, in my opinion, for the Indianapolis Colts, is the perfect remedy for Carson Wentz, who was up and down, was a magician at times, but you know what the problem with magician is? Sometimes things go wrong. Sometimes you can see that it's just a trick. It's just an illusion. And all Carson Wentz was an illusion. In week 18 of last year against the Jacksonville Jaguars, the tricks started to come undone, and people started to see what Wentz was. He's someone who goes up and down. He's a roller coaster. He might be a starting quarterback, but he shouldn't be leading a team as talented as the Colts. The Indianapolis Colts know exactly what they're going to get from Matt Ryan, unlike they did with Carson Wentz. Atlanta is also, for Indianapolis, taking a $40 million dead cap hit, which is the largest in history. They're only going to have to pay Matt Ryan $24 million this season, which is very, very manageable for a team that's great around all fronts. They have Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman, a great O-line, a dominant defense. Matt Ryan has not had any of those things throughout his entire career. He finally got an offensive line, and he finally got a reliable running back. Atlanta is a mess. Guys, remember, Ridley is gone. Calvin Ridley gone for the whole year for gambling. They just lost a great tight end to Tampa Bay. And what do the Falcons do? They get Marcus Mariota and a corresponding move. Mariota, he can't stay healthy. He's brittle, and he likes to run around. He's just not as good as Lamar Jackson. He can't not get hurt. It's not a great solution, but Atlanta is looking to get out from underneath this contract, and they know they're not a Super Bowl team this year. This is a very, very weak QB market, and Arthur Blank knew it. Like all great businessmen, it's better to move on a year early, prep your team, and then next year in a great QB class, they will start the comeback, then rather move on a year too late. No one ever wants to be behind the ball. Everyone would rather move on a year early. Now, I told you guys this was a win for all parties. And Atlanta, it's a win. It's a long-term win. They moved on early. It's what they needed to do. The Matt Ryan era was not going to work out. You have Kyle Pitts at tight end. You got possibly one of the most dominant tight ends if his career goes right. He's a special type of player. Develop your team. They know what they're doing, and they're getting out from underneath that contract, so it's a win for them. Matt Ryan, as I've said, still has plenty in the tank, and I think could lead this Colts team to a Super Bowl. It's a long ways from the season. A lot can happen, but Matt Ryan has won an MVP. He's been to the Super Bowl before. The Colts team is more talented of a team than he has ever had, and now on to the Colts. It's a win for the Colts because they do no longer have a magician at quarterback. What they have is a guy that you know what you're going to get from. Remember, Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay both had guys, Jimmy G and Jared Goff, that they knew what they were going to get from them in a week in and week out basis. And that's what some teams need. Some teams are talented enough and build their teams in other ways. You just need a quarterback that can be a game manager. I think that's what Indianapolis is trying to do. They don't want all the magic. They don't want all the special stuff. They know they should have made the playoffs last year. So they're trying to right that wrong with a veteran quarterback who's been to the Super Bowl and knows his place and isn't going to try and pull this magician crap. Transitioning on today to another massive move throughout this week. Tyreek Hill, as you all know, is traded to the Miami Dolphins. I think a lot of people are overreacting in Kansas City, and I'll tell you why. Tyreek Hill signed a 4-year, $120 million, $72.2 guaranteed contract. He's getting $30 million a year, guys. His cap numbers for 2023. So not this season. Miami's got themselves a little bit of a buffer. Not this season, but next season, 2023. He has 13.9% of the cap hit. A wide receiver does. People, GMs, analysts, all these guys, and myself included, people don't like quarterbacks to take up more than 12%, or 12.5% max. That's why Green Bay's system has often been inefficient, because Green Bay's quarterbacks get so much of the cap. Rodgers is sitting at around 13.5% each season. Now the Dolphins are going to give a receiver 13.9% of their available cap space. They're paying an eighth of their roster, eighth of their available funds, all to one wide receiver, which is wild to me. I think this a lot came down to money, and the Chiefs, as I've said about great businessmen, they're always going to be 2 years ahead of the market. The Kansas City Chiefs want to remain a dynasty. And if you look at places like the Patriots, the only way they did it is because they moved off key players a year or two before they actually needed to. They're always prepping for the future. I like Tyreek to the Dolphins, but I also like a Formula One racing car. But that doesn't mean I'm going to know how to drive it. Tua is not going to know how to drive Tyreek Hill. Tua is not going to know how to get Tyreek Hill the ball consistently. It's just not going to happen. This is a bad owner, a bad GM, a first-year head coach, and a C+ at best at quarterback. This is an F1 racing car with an inexperienced driver. I'll give this to the Dolphins. They're trying to fix themselves. The last 4 or 5 months, as the world has changed and as the NFL has changed, the Miami Dolphins are trying to change with it. They have been a defensive-minded team for years. You guys have known that. You guys have seen all the headlines and have transitioned to becoming more offensive like teams need to do now. You guys have heard me say it for months. Every 15 to 20 years or so, the league changes. The league switches it up. Now it is an offensive-minded world led by the young guns. It's great that they got Tyreek Hill. They have a great sports car, but they don't have the right driver. Tyreek Hill is a $30 million piano in a rundown mansion. That's just the way it is. Bad owner, bad GM, first-year head coach, and C+ at best at quarterback. You guys know, or if you don't remember, they signed Teddy Bridgewater this offseason. Don't be surprised if by week 8 of this year, Teddy Bridgewater is starting for the Dolphins. Now, I'm going to transition back to the Chiefs real quick because I'm sure many people are still upset. If I was a Chiefs fan, I'm a Packers fan. I just lost Devontae Adams. I can reason with myself. I can think through things, but I'm still upset, and Chiefs are in a better position than the Packers are with receivers, but we'll get to that. The Chiefs are installing a model for a dynasty, and I want to tell you guys my 3 things for a model for a dynasty. Number 1, a dynasty needs a QB who's all about winning. I'll take Bill Belichick and the Patriots for this example. What'd Tom Brady do his whole career? He restructured his contract. He made sure the Patriots were able to get the guys they needed. And now what has Patrick Mahomes done? He's already restructured his contract twice to fix the cap. Number 2, for a model for a great dynasty, they need a great coach. Vince Lombardi, Jimmy Johnson, Bill Belichick, Joe Gibbs, all these dynasties, what they have, a great coach. And number 3, and I think this is the most important one, and this is very present in this Tyreek Hill situation, so listen up. The third thing is you have to fall in love with winning and not the players, which is what the Chiefs are doing here. Tyreek Hill, everybody loves. He's amazing. But they couldn't fall in love with the player. They need to fall in love with getting back to the Super Bowl and getting back there. Kansas City has all 3 ingredients. Let me tell you something else Kansas City has that New England always had. Draft picks. They've stocked up like nobody's business and flying under the radar with them. Kansas City has the most draft picks in the NFL this year with 12. That's what Bill would always do. He would hoard them. And don't forget, Andy Reid has grown up with Bill and seen all these tactics for years, while Bill most of the time beats him out. College is spitting out 25 new receivers a year. And they have the most picks in the NFL this year and will for years to come. There's a precedent and a road to continuing success. And actually, it's going to be 4 things now because of the draft picks. A QB that's all about winning. A great coach. Falling in love with winning, not the player. And hoarding draft picks like it's nobody's business. Because the only thing college is doing is getting better. And the only thing that veterans are doing is getting more expensive. So getting these players that are on their contract deals coming right out of college, they're cheap, especially in rounds 2 through 7, anybody outside of the first round. It is great for a team for 4 to 5 years. How do you think the Patriots stayed afloat for so long? Continuing on with the Chiefs have filled their hole now that Tyreek is gone, I feel like, and they plugged it in one of the best ways they possibly could. Juju Smith-Schuster and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, as you all know, have signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. And Juju is 3 years younger than Hill, and MVS is 4 years younger. So they bought themselves significantly more time for a run. Both these guys cost less than Tyreek Hill put together. Juju and MVS cost about $22 million total. MVS has the same speed of Tyreek and is way younger as well. You guys heard what I said, about Tyreek's contract. He wanted to take up 13.9% of the cap space. Instead, you've got 2 players that can rotate on the field. You still have Tyreek Hill's speed with MVS, who still has a ton of upside. This is what great teams do. They find guys that can keep them going and keep the dynasty alive. Relying on older bodies won't work forever, especially when you were playing extra games every year in the postseason. The Bucks prove that after the oldest roster in the NFL, which they had after winning a Super Bowl, playing more games than anyone else because they had to play in the wild card round. If you guys remember when they won the Super Bowl, they came back and fell apart with injuries. They fell apart mentally, physically. It wasn't there last season for the Bucs because they did not have the young talent. They didn't have the young minds to keep it fresh, keep it loose, keep it live. Especially a wide receiver and corner, you always want the next generation coming up. And with how long Patrick Mahomes is going to be in this league, people need to become comfortable, just like they were comfortable with Brady. The amount of receivers, think at all Brady's receivers. I'm just going to name 3. Wes Welker, Randy Moss, Julian Edelman. I'll name to Rob Gronkowski. There's so many. There's going to be so many guys that Patrick Mahomes gets that's truly special, that's going to become a part of the Kansas City Chiefs organization. But you know what Kansas City's doing? They're falling in love with winning and not with the player, which is how you form a dynasty. Transitioning on to another AFC team who just made a big move this offseason, earlier this week. It came out right after I filmed last week's episode, so I've been looking forward to talking about this a little bit. And I will definitely be talking about it more as we find out more with him. Deshaun Watson is headed to the Cleveland Browns, as you all know. And personally, you look back at other cases like Ben Roethlisberger, Big Ben's, I don't think Deshaun Watson is going to play in September and maybe even October. It's going to be a 6 to 8 game suspension, and Cleveland's going to sink during that time. They could finish 3rd or 4th in this division easy. Cincinnati has buffed themselves up so much this offseason. They've got draft picks. They've got 3 new offensive linemen. Exactly what I said after the Super Bowl the Cincinnati Bengals wouldn't do, couldn't do, have never done, they've done. I love it. Joe Burrow deserves it, and it makes me so happy. And I talked about this last week, but GM Andrew Berry for the Browns is trying to install a set of standards for the city of Cleveland. Minus LeBron, there has never been a set of standards for the city of Cleveland, and they've never been any of their franchises been historically winning. His contract now makes him the highest paid guy in the league, and the guaranteed money is insane for a guy with the cases that he has. I like what the Browns are doing. If everything clears out with Deshaun, 3-4 years from now, it's probably going to work out for the Browns. But I need all you Cleveland Brown fans to realize the ride that this is going to be for a year or two. Deshaun, and he's been gone for a year. If he sits out 8 games, he's going to be out of football for a year and a half. Don't think that guy's not going to have rust. Don't think that guy's not going to need 4 to 8 games to boot back up. Because he will. Don't expect Cleveland in the playoffs this season. Expect Cleveland 3rd or 4th. I pick 4th. I think Pittsburgh's going to make moves. That's just my early predictions here. I like Deshaun. I like Cleveland. I like Andrew Berry trying to install standards. But like I said last week, I think they botched it harder than they could. They got so lucky that they were able to come back on this Deshaun Watson deal and get it done. Because if not, they were shot on Baker Mayfield, which I'll get to in a second because a lot of people are wondering where he's going, and they wouldn't have had a quarterback with one of the most talented rosters in the league last year. Remember when they were healthy? Top 3 in running, top 3 in defense. That is a Super Bowl recipe right there, folks. That's what I love to see. I'm happy the Browns were able to go out and get a quarterback. All you Browns fans remember what I'm telling you right here, though. The last team before I get into today's little game that I've got planned is going to be the Green Bay Packers, obviously. You guys know we had to get to them. I want to take a second, after everything that's happened with Devontae and other receivers leaving and things like that, take a second and look at the market. Now, without Allen Robinson and without Robert Woods, Allen Robinson went to the Rams, Robert Woods to the Tennessee Titans, there is a legitimate argument right now that the Packers do not have one starting wide receiver on the team. They for sure don't have a one or two. That's I can confirm that. And many executives around the league don't think that Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb are even good for a third string wide receiver spot. Allen Lazard is currently the Packers' number one receiver, and he's getting paid $4 million a year. Look at the Rams. Their wide receiver core, Cooper Kupp, receiving leader, yards leader, touchdown leader, Super Bowl MVP, all that. You know, Cooper Kupp. Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson, and most likely OBJ. The Bucks, they have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Scotty Miller is their fourth guy. Scotty Miller could be the number 2 on the Packers right now. He's ahead of Allen Lazard. They have no one. Packers, in my opinion, need to send Jordan Love and a second or a third round pick in exchange for DK Metcalf. After this Davante Adams trade, I saw what the plan was. The Packers, they signed Jordan Reed earlier this week. It was a defensive lineman. And I believe he played with the Seahawks last. They re-signed Douglas. They re-signed Devondre Campbell. They're trying to boost up their defense, trying to get all this stuff. But what have I said for weeks, for months? It's becoming an offensive league. Things are changing in the NFL. Doesn't matter who your quarterback is. Aaron Rodgers does not have a 1, does not have a 2, does not have a 3 at wide receiver. There's no one. GM Brian Gutekunst needs to get on the phone and he needs to start making deals. The Packers have 2 firsts. They have 2 seconds. We now have $20 million in cap space. Only 10 of that needs to go into draft picks. It's time to start making moves. Things need to change. Because if we just re-sign Aaron Rodgers, we're screwing ourselves for the future unless we get wide receivers. It's plain as that. It's the way it is. Davante Adams, like I've said, saw the writing on the wall. And if the Packers do not make moves here, it's just confirming that writing on the wall. The Packers are a team that dangles between championship and poverty. It's just the way it is. They've had a quarterback for the last 34 years. I've kept them at that level. But at both times, 3 times, when those quarterbacks have gotten hurt, it's plummeted. Now, going on, topic 2 today. I'm changing up today's game. You guys know we usually do a little yay or nay. And I'm changing it today to here or there. Basically what I'm doing, I'm going to go through a list of players. And I'm going to tell you guys where I think they're going to end up this offseason. Got a couple quarterbacks, got some wide receivers, just got some guys. We're going to start it off. Going today first, I said we were going to get here, Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, I'm thinking at the moment, with the market that's left, I think Seattle is the most likely pace for him. Pete Carroll is on his last chance, and he is not going to take a risk on a guy from a weak QB class and what could possibly be his last year. I've said to you guys before, Pete Carroll, if he gets fired from the Seahawks, he's now been fired. He's been fired 3 times, and that's just not a good look at all. He does not want that on his legacy as a coach. Seattle is open to shopping DK and Lockett, but if they keep them, Baker will have all the weapons he needs. And who knows, Pete Carroll, older guy, maybe he can help Baker out a little bit. Baker Mayfield has very, very, very little market, 0 offers, and he has to prove himself this season. Is he the least talented in this QB market? No. Is he the worst leader? No. What is it then? It's his personality. Baker has put himself here. He needs to put himself in check and humble himself. Go up to Seattle, play for the Seahawks, learn from Pete Carroll for a year, and I think Baker Mayfield could find himself in another job a few years from now. But it's looking like Jimmy G could get picked up before him. Jimmy G, a guy who's much less talented and not as good in the locker room. Not overall. Baker Mayfield is better. And Jimmy G is going to get picked up first. What's that come down to? Personality. Now, next person on here there, Jimmy G. I'm leaning for either Pittsburgh or Carolina for Jimmy G. If Pittsburgh doesn't get Kenny Pickett in this year's draft, I don't think they can roll with Mason Rudolph throughout this season. Mason Rudolph, we know. We've seen the film. We've seen him play. He's not good. Carolina and Matt Rule, who Matt Rule is on the hot seat this season, isn't going to leave his job up to Sam Darnold. And Jimmy G is a guy who's been to a Super Bowl, remember. He's 30 years old. He's injury-riddled. $25 million contract. It's rough. But the two places where it's fit, in my opinion, is Pittsburgh or Carolina. Mike Tomlin's got the defense. Carolina's straight up just on the hot seat. Carolina needs a quarterback. Sam Darnold isn't their guy. His lack of offers is predictable. An offensive genius, Kyle Shanahan, is bailing on him. He is aging and gets hurt often. Can't throw the ball for another month due to his recent surgery on his throwing shoulder. But there's a market for all these guys, especially in a weak QB class and a weak QB market this year. Trubisky, Matt Ryan, and Watson have now all been picked up this offseason. All picked over Jimmy G and Baker. Now, going back to Baker and Jimmy for a second. What are we going to think if Jimmy G is signed before Baker Mayfield this offseason? Baker, he's ready to play. He's younger and cheaper with a better arm. Like I said, 25 million years old, $30, injury riddled. Kyle Shanahan's bailing on him. Can't throw the ball for another few months. What's that saying about Baker Mayfield? Baker Mayfield has everything that Jimmy G does not have. And if Jimmy G's signed before him, that means Trubisky, Matt Ryan, Watson, and Jimmy G were all picked up before Baker Mayfield was. And that's just something that you think about, you don't even need to elaborate on further, because I think everybody understands what I'm saying here. Baker Mayfield has shot himself in the foot. It's just plain as day. Odell Beckham Jr. is next on my here or there. I think, personally, you guys remember he had the ACL in the Super Bowl. He's going to be out most likely for a good bit of the season. Could not even come back. We saw with David Bakhtiari this year. He only came back and played for like 20 minutes against Detroit in the final week. I think Odell Beckham Jr. is just going to end up somewhere on the West Coast. Once guys like Odell go to an environment like LA, with the amount of money that LA has, they don't go back to cold places like Green Bay or Buffalo or Cleveland like some people are talking about. Odell's friends with guys, he's best friends with LeBron actually, and has all sorts of friends in LA. Colin Cowherd talks about it all of the time. In LA, in Las Vegas, in these places, superstars can walk around without getting flagged down. In Kansas City, if Patrick Mahomes goes to the supermarket, it's going to be flooded with people in minutes. In Los Angeles, Odell can just walk around and live his life. And I promise you guys, Odell really likes that. He's plus 400 odds to go to the Raiders, which that could be interesting. I would definitely look into that bet if I were you guys. I don't like to bet on that stuff personally, but I'm here to help you. And plus 400 to the Raiders, not a terrible deal if he does not go back to the Rams. I'd understand if he didn't want to go back to the Rams. Now with Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, they got a stacked wide receiving core. But I think LA is the place he end up. Hell, he may even end up with the Chargers. But it's both LA teams, Las Vegas, maybe San Francisco. Those are the only places Odell's going to. Next on here there, we got Jarvis Landry. I think Jarvis is either going to end up in Green Bay or New England. Both teams were knocked in the first round and played in the playoffs and lost in the playoffs for lack of offensive production. Green Bay needs wide receivers, and so does Mac Jones. Jarvis Landry is done with this little kid stuff at quarterback, which in my opinion is why he's going to lean towards Green Bay. He wants to be a wide receiver one. He wants an elite quarterback and a great coach. And a lot of the contenders in this league are already out of space. Well, guess what? Green Bay and New England has plenty of space. So look for Jarvis Landry to go to Green Bay or New England. I would lean Green Bay over New England, however. Next up, Julio Jones. I think he's going to go to the Indianapolis Colts. Doesn't have a very high market at all this offseason. He was injury-riddled last offseason. Titans gave him a chance to be wide receiver 2 for them, and that, as we all know, did not work out very well. Julio Jones is going to go to the Colts, reunite with Matt Ryan, and the only piece the Colts are really missing is a solid wide receiver 2 or 3. I know what many are saying. He had his chance last year. He is getting old and doesn't deserve to be number 2 anymore. But with Matt Ryan and the Colts situation, both parties need to make this one work out. Frank Reich may be the most because he's on the hot seat, just like Pete Carroll, just like Matt Rule. Situations in the NFL, remember, it's a business first, and coaches are trying to save their jobs. They don't want to be out of this business. Frank Reich's going to do whatever he can, and I think what helps Matt Ryan the most is reuniting him with Julio Jones, who he played with for years. Last guy today on Here or There, Colin Kaepernick. This one's going to be nowhere. Colin Kaepernick now, he sat out for 6 years of the league. In 4 of those years, I defended him. But at this point, it's on him. And the reports have come out over the past years, and it proves it. When he ditches NFL scouts out of field because of some BS video camera, all this, and the NFL was able to back things up. He's 34 years old. And each offseason now, he just gets his name in people's mouths like he's doing with me right now. He's not going to end up anywhere. The QB market, QB class may be weak. It's not that weak. Transitioning on, topic 3 today, right before I head out for today. As you guys know, Sweet 16's over. Elite 8 begins tonight. I'm incredibly excited. Duke has a real chance this year. As you guys know, talked about it for a few weeks now. I'm a big Duke fan. Banchero has been looking amazing and elevating himself every single week, or every single game, however. And they're playing Arkansas tonight, which is an extremely scary team, and I think many people are sleeping on them. This is my game from the Elite 8 that I truly don't know what's going to happen. I thought Duke was going to lose against Texas Tech, which was the number 1 defensive team in the country, but they were down 6 at one point, and guess what brought them back? Great coaching. And everybody underestimates the Coach K effect, it seems like. So if I have to pick this game tonight, I'm going to go Coach K. I'm going to go the Duke Blue Devils to get themselves to the Final Four, and we're going to transition to who they're going to be playing in the Final Four. UNC UCLA obviously was last night. I had UCLA winning it all, but Caleb Love for the Tar Heels had different plans. And now, as much as I want the Peacocks and St. Peter's, New Jersey, as much as I want them to go to the Final Four, imagine the real-life movie we would be watching if UNC and Duke win tonight and tomorrow. And next week, we get to watch Duke versus UNC, Final Four, Coach K's final run to make it to the championship. It would be one of the most amazing games, amazing storylines, and the documentaries to come over that would be like something we've never seen. So storyline-wise, as much I hate that St. Peter's had to run into UNC, just based off the way things lined up. Any other situation, I would be rooting for St. Peter's. Even though I'm a Duke fan, I have to be rooting for the Tar Heels here. And I'm picking the Tar Heels because I want to see UNC Duke. That would be it would be so amazing, and I would love it in K's final season. Now, next Elite 8 game, Houston versus Villanova. I really, really like Villanova right now to possibly win this whole tournament, but Houston is just playing flat out amazing right now. Houston was a Final Four team last year and is led by multiple seniors this season, so never count Houston out. The same thing I talked about last week. When you have guys who are seniors who have been there with chemistry, they really want a championship, and that's something that freshmen and guys like that don't have. Good thing for Villanova is they have experience, especially in the coaching department, and they seem to always be in this situation come every March. Personally, I'm picking Villanova because I have them in my bracket. I want Villanova to keep it going. That's where I'm going with that game. And I want to talk a little bit more. I know I was just talking about them, but St. Peter's. Even the announcers were talking about it. This little team from New Jersey that has 3,000 students, whose gym, I had a bigger high school gym than St. Peter's has. That little team looked so comfortable during warm-ups. And the entire game down to that final shot from Purdue when they missed it off the rim. Doug Eddard. It's what these Cinderella teams need. What I am watching, it is amazing. It's the greatest Cinderella story we have ever need. Just like Johnny Juzang was last year for UCLA. Just like Sister Jean is for Loyola Chicago. Every Cinderella story needs something. Needs someone to rally behind. And everyone is rallying behind Mustache Doug and a peacock. And I love it. It is so great, and it captures exactly what March is all about. And it's giving these teenagers, these early 20-year-olds, a chance to compete for glory and do something that we've never seen. Like a 3,000 student school going to the Elite Eight with the possible chance to go to the Final Four. You guys know there's things called the March Madness effect. You know, this is what this is going to do for their school population, their intake and all that. There's going to be more enrollments. They're going to get more money, more sponsorship. All this is great. Cinderella stories, there's nothing but good that comes from it. Because all it is guys who have worked their asses off finally getting credit. And schools who have flown under the radar and who have gotten beaten up and bullied by the big institutions, sticking it back to them, and getting some payback. Getting what they deserve. It's what everybody loves about March. It's what makes March special for everybody. It's the best time in sports. Thank you all so much for tuning in to another edition of the Adam Eisen Show. I'll be back next Friday to bring you guys episode 24. I'm sure there's going to be plenty more NFL news. We'll have the Final Four to talk about. I can't wait to see you all then. Peace.